Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Jane Thurmond, very popularly known as Fast Lane Jane, host of High Octane Hustle Motorsports Lifestyle podcast. She's also a race car driver, has been doing that, and also a published motorsports lifestyle journalist. Welcome to the show, Jane.
Thank you so much, Ajay. I'm so appreciative to be here and to share some time with you and your audience.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Jane. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about how one can accelerate their life at any age. We'll be talking about this. Who better to tell us about this? But before that, we come on to this fast lane of life. Let's understand all the lanes you took in life for yourself, a little bit about your journey so that a lot of people can learn from that itself.
Where to begin, right? I've always been interested in automotive. I was exposed at an early age to fast cars and fast boats through my father, and he actually worked for Screen Actors Guild and had friends who were stuntmen. And at the tender age of 9 or 10 years old, that looks very appealing when you're somewhat of a tomboy. And so I paid attention there and kind of fell into the car world. California is where I live, and we are known for our incredible car culture. So I've always been around vehicles and motorsports, and more from a looking afar, more from dating a guy who had a nice car. Ultimately, um, that sounds really shallow, I know, but I married the man and have been married almost 40 years. So uh, we owned an automotive business, and you can see in the background, let me get my right
Yes.
and my left, the the car that I drive. And we kind of played with the idea of showing the cars that we built, and that turned into racing. But I'm here to tell you that I was almost 50 years old when that started. And there was a whole lot of life along the way. I was involved in a variety of different forms of teaching. I was in fitness and I taught. I went into real estate and I mentored and taught. And then it was a natural transition for me as far as employment went to move into teaching other females how to drive performance cars because I was adept at it. And then there was just this snowball effect, and I rode with it because I wanted to remain relevant with my own children as they were nesting out of the house. And what better way to do that than for them to think mom is pretty cool? She's in the motorsports industry. So, again, going back to that whole shallow beginning of reasoning, um, I was 48 years old when I started racing, and I've been racing for 12 years, teaching for 10, podcasting for 3, and writing for 10 as well. So I had no idea that I would ultimately make a career out of this. But that entrepreneurial spirit kicked in, and that is indeed, Ajay, how I accelerated my life.
Absolutely accelerated your life, and people want to have a life at at whatever age they are. But one thing I want to understand from you, Jane, is that a lot of people at the age of say 40 plus, they start thinking, my life is getting over, that
Yeah.
I should people, even the world will start, even if you don't, the world will start telling you. And many a times nowadays people say you must slow down, you must reduce the speed at which you are going. So my question is that how should we understand 50, is it the time to accelerate, or decelerate? How do you decide on this part?
That's such an interesting point, and it's something that I've really, really um, chosen to embrace in my own life. Uh, so oftentimes, obviously, I'm female, I have kids, and as a female mom with kids, and I think this can happen to you whether you have kids or not, but you recognize that life should be, or our society encourages us to slow down. And then you kind of watch that shift and realize, I don't want to slow down. And no, I don't believe that people should decelerate their lives. We have so much experience, so much knowledge, so much passion still in our bodies and our hearts to share. And how I really came to understand that is that at some of the shows that I would attend, or some of the races that I would attend, I would have an opportunity to have women ride passenger or shotgun in my vehicle. And sitting at the start line, these women confessed that I could never do that. I don't know how. You're so brave. And I think that only the first step into doing something requires an immense amount of courage, right? You get that first step. And then if we understand, we just do one step at a time, just keep having courage during that first step. And the conversations that we had, or I had with these women, and kind of uncovering, not unlike an archaeologist, because we're digging up feelings, and they're and you know what's really crazy is when somebody's in a high octane situation, if you will, where their nerves are going, they do start to share a little bit more. And we've got our helmets on. There's a little bit of anonymity, and I tell you, that was ultimately what set me on the journey to find out, first off, more about women and why we decide we need to stop. And so ultimately, that has been for me a test of finding out um, what makes women tick after the kids leave. How do we take that energy that we've put into our family for the last 20, 25 years? And it's a lot of energy. It's like just a lot of fission going on there, right? And how do we redirect it? How do we redirect it into our purpose and what our dreams are? I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, being in the fast lane, being on the at the top, many a times people say it's lonely at the top. Being in the fast lane, being at the top, did you feel lonely? Did you feel alone? Or did you feel people around you? Or was it that being on the fast lane, when you are there, you don't need people in that sense? Not that you don't need them, but you feel very equipped, very somebody who knows oneself. Help us understand that sort of a mindset when you were, doing what you were doing.
Well, it all started with feeling panicked the first few races and thinking, I've got to learn to calm myself down. And so yoga was my go to. I hadn't practiced yoga before I started racing, maybe just dabbled in classes here or there. But I really set out on a journey to understand how I could kind of calm myself down and breathe and not be so worn out after a race. Because when your uh, adrenaline and your cortisol and everything's firing in your body, you run out of that fuel, right? When it comes to endurance. So, how I really wanted to be able to understand, how can I kind of temper that. And so yoga for me was a really, really good friend. Meditation is something I still do. I'm not practicing yoga nearly as much as I used to, but meditation and learning about meditation, that really helped quell the nerves and understand that I could breathe through it. Fitness is super, super important. It always has been a part of my life. But you've touched on something that you do kind of go in to yourself to accomplish certain things. Your focus or becomes somewhat hyper focused. And while it can be extraordinarily engaging and and adrenaline filled, it's also very zen when you're racing, when you get into
Right.
flow. And I think that's like that with almost any career. We can really kind of say when we're starting off on a path, our nerves kick up, our adrenaline, we're excited about it. We're how do we maintain that momentum is really
Right.
key. And and like you said, how do you do it in a way where you don't necessarily feel alone? And there are moments there. I think now, not so much during racing did I feel that aloneness, uh, because I was super well received. Uh, so I'm grateful for that. And a bit of an anomaly. That's a mouthful, isn't it? When I moved into podcasting and public speaking, that became a little bit more, it's not a team sport, it's an individual uh, sport. So, and becoming an entrepreneur in a fashion through podcasting and the efforts that you have to put in there to become successful, that can get a little bit lonely, and it can be. Um, there's that moment in time for me where I didn't really want to talk a whole lot about what I was doing because I was up in my head about appearances and how people would respond or react to that. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed. And that is where, a lot of things happen during that time when you, as you talked about, being in the flow. So,
Yeah,
being in the flow is like being at home, in your zone.
yeah.
Then, when that zone, that adrenaline thing is calm down, when you come back, whom do you come to? Do you come to yourself? Because you have been with yourself. Where do you, and where is that home? I want to understand that part. Where do you find the solace for yourself when you find the best with yourself, but it's in the fast lane? You got to slow down at any point in time.
Oh, 100%. And I I am a I I would be lying if I told you I'm extroverted all the time. I'm very much an omnivert, right? And when I push myself out to be in the public eye, you do need to kind of allow the pendulum to swing back. And I do need to kind of come home and come back to alone time. I love spending time at the coast, which I find very healing. Walking, again, talking about meditation, and spending time with my dog, that centers me and grounds me. And of course, family. Family is safe. Family is a big net for me. My kids, my husband, they're a great big net for me to kind of just lay around. Because along with racing, I teach teen proactive driving for a nonprofit, and there's a requirement to be on when you're teaching. And when you're trying to engage teenagers
Right.
and then tell them what to do and then get them to do it correctly, because I teach slippery surface driving, which means car control. I teach skid recovery, which means drifting and then coming out of that. Um, you've got all this dynamic happening, and there's this frenzy of energy. If you guys can imagine this, um, and you're like, "Okay, I gotta harness it down right here. Gotta bring it back, gotta bring it back because we are in a car." but it can be, it's super, super rewarding. I love it. And I have found something that that works for me so well, but you do need downtime. So when I come home from a weekend, if I've been out of state or otherwise, I don't ever plan anything on Mondays because I know that's my day for recovery. If I want to just Netflix and chill or go to the beach or something like that, um, that's important. And listen, I don't think we um, really revere nearly enough that moment or multiple moments of self care. I
Right,
think it's critical for us to take time to not be going,
right,
right?
right, Jane. Wonderful. Now, at around 50,
Yes.
people look at life, even before that, people start looking at life. You talked about you are modest, being modest about your achievements, that it was because to, for my kids and all. But many a times, what happens is a lot of people start doing that, maybe not in your case, but in others, start reinventing their life to suit the situation or others' lives. How should one look at the reinvention part? Should it be more about fulfilling their dreams that were left because of the different things that they were doing in life, their responsibilities? Not everyone is fortunate enough to follow their passion from the very beginning. How should they make this reinvention a more thing about fulfillment for themselves also, and not about fulfillment of just being relevant? Reinvention should be about themselves, not just about being relevant. Help us understand this part for a lot of people who might be dwindling like a pendulum, do not know where to stop.
Yes. Well, not all of us are created equally, and that's what makes living in this world that we're in so exciting because we have people for me because I tend to be high high energy and I need those people who ground me, right? So they're not going to, maybe those people who ground me aren't in the same interest band that I am. But one of the things I discovered when I was racing and having conversation with adult women who were my contemporaries was a rediscovery of self at the age of 50. It's funny that you were kind of using that and so in alignment here, Ajay. I don't care whether it's competitive crocheting. It doesn't even need to be competitive. It just means something that you're passionate about. I can't crochet for beans. Okay. I'm not good at that. I can knit, I can do things, and I'm creative. But I think just in those quiet moments, that's when this creativity and big magic can kind of come and tap us on the shoulder. And we we really need, especially as we get older, ladies, if we have a big audience of women here, ladies, please sit in the quiet moments and listen. Just listen because something magical is about to happen to you. Something's going to find you. And it doesn't have to be competitive. It just has to be something that which fills your heart, right? And it doesn't require um, a fast car. It doesn't require an education. Passion is there for all of us, right? We don't need anything special other than our ears and our mind to start really paying attention and listening to that which is in our heart and explore that. See what that feels like. Maybe you want to take on baking. Maybe it's time to start watercolor painting.
Right.
Again, it doesn't have to be. Maybe you want to start. I met some women at a car show, and this is really cool. They loved roller skating, so they got involved in a female roller derby. I'm like, are you kidding me? That sounds like crazy fun. Ajay, do you guys have roller derby in India.
I don't know much about. I know roller skates. I don't know about
Yes.
derby, but I do know what roller skates are all. But beyond that, I don't know anything.
So it's just another fun way for women to get together, feel athletic. It doesn't matter what size you are. You're racing around a circle rink, and you guys
Okay,
look it up
okay,
on
got it.
YouTube. It's super, super fun. But meeting women who are doing something like that, it doesn't have to be, again, going back to something grandiose like racing. The only reason we raced was we had access to vehicles and we had a chassis builder that said, hey, come to this event. And it snowballed from there. So take advantage of what you have access to and see what's, we have so many different things that we can see on social media. I say put that down. Uh, get outside, try some foraging or exercise or hiking or just try. There's no rules. We're not in school anymore. There's no report card. Let's have a great time and explore.
Wonderful. Let's have a great time and explore. Now, uh, Jane, you work with a lot of teenagers about, safe driving, difficult
Yes.
driving, and everything else. What about life itself? A lot of people think of retiring, say 25, 30. Young people want to retire at 30, be at the beach, enjoy their life, or do a lot of things for, I don't know, whatever their plan is. And at this, on the contrast, you talk about reinventing life, living life, accelerating life at 50. What would you like to tell the young generation, especially about looking at life? Should they be accelerating their life at this 30 years, live their life, and then slow down a bit and maybe look at reinvent or relook at life at later on? But here it is a bit, a lot of people want to just earn a lot of money and retire in life at 30. And I don't know about how do you look at this whole thing? What is your take on this, if you would like to say anything particular to the young generation?
Okay, kids. Stay lit. I think that the keep the fire stoked in your heart and in your gut, right? Um, I spent a fair amount of time in real estate before getting into this my what I'll call my fourth iteration of my career. And in real estate, there was a time where you could make a very successful career for yourself with lots and lots of money. And I bore easily. So be prepared for that, kids. It's super important to recognize when it's time for a shift or a change. I think that I love the idea of settling down at the beach. But what would settling down look like? Doing nothing? No, it would probably look like getting out and kayaking. I'm not a great surfer, so that's probably out of the question. But I think that 30, that sounds wonderful. My son always says that. He goes, I'd like to be retired by the time I'm 35. Well, if you have enough money to live your passion, whatever you're passionate about, that's great. But you can also live your passion while you're still doing the grind, right? You can
Right.
still make time for the key is just making time for yourself and not having that onus to just the grind, right? Just the hustle and not being afraid. I think that I'm probably one of the few people that I know that has gotten bored of different industries, right? Because my
Right.
common thread is I seem to always be teaching in some form or fashion. But I see people that ultimately have stayed in a career that doesn't fit them. So just like we continue to grow as children and we shift and we change our clothes, I think that mentally we continue to grow and that shifts and we have to be prepared for that. So maybe looking more into that and seeing what fits us for that time. If it's 30 and it means we need to stop and we need to slow down, be open to shift and change your mind. Just because you set it at 25, this is what I'm going to do when by the time I'm 30. When 30 rolls around, if that doesn't fit you at that point, don't force it. Just roll with it and rediscover who you can be because that just might be the universe opening up a different direction that's really going to ultimately bring you more fulfillment, right?
Absolutely. Now, Jane, one one is young, that time they are always looking at, that be a go-getter, hustle,
Yeah.
and all these
Yeah.
words that you get to
Yes.
hear everywhere.
Yes.
But but what about around, say, age of 45, 50? How should one look at the reinvention part, acceleration part? Should they wait for things to happen, or should they again just go out and get what they want? What is the best way? How did things fall into place for you? Did you put them into place one by one, leading up to
That's
being
so
a
cute.
journalist? Yeah, being a
That's
journalist, being, getting onto this high octane hustle, motor, so many things. I want to understand, did you make that happen, or did it
yes,
fall
sir.
into place?
No, no, no. There's I don't lead a charmed life by the sense of things falling into place. Ultimately, how that happened is I started to write I had a sponsor, K&N sponsored me. They're a global air filter company for vehicles. They said, "Well, you're out at these races, and what do you think about kind of giving us um, a story from your experience at these races?" And I thought, great, no problem. Then they said, "Oh, we'll pay you too." And I'm like, who doesn't? I could talk and not be paid, so that's totally fine. Uh, so I had, and what's crazy, you guys, is I struggled with creative writing as a younger person. I didn't know who or what my voice was then. So it was very much a struggle. And I went through growing up thinking, "Oh my gosh, you go through the steps of taking the English class so you can get credit for it." Did I enjoy it at the time? No. Little did I know that storytelling would become such a huge part of my life. And in doing so, writing for K&N, which was amazing. I did that for a couple of years and I raced. They were a title sponsor of mine. So we had an incredible relationship. When I started telling that story, and then my own personal life started to shift and change and grow and morph, I created a blog. Do you guys remember back in the day when there were blogs to read? Oh my goodness, that was so long ago, right? Now everything is video or social media with the videos that's really um, archiving our lives, right? But I wrote a blog, and the more I wrote, the more I found a need to do something different. And my need really arose from I saw the shift in me. My communication skills became better because you could no longer refer to something in the vehicle as, "Oh, that sticky thing over there, can you fix that?" You
Right.
just can't. You have to actually articulate in words that make sense and understanding what the car is doing. And then that led to me working on my own car. So that's a story for another time. But I think that that really allowed me to open up to other people within my industry, and I started paying attention to what these people were doing and who they were and what their behavior was during a race. And so I wanted to get to know them. And for me, it was my question that popped into my head was like I would ask you, Ajay, how did you get to be such a badass? That's what started the
Right.
conversation going.
Right.
And that's what turned into more interviews. And then ultimately, I started with an Instagram live series. I have no backing. This is just me, sweat equity. The most I can give you is all my sweat equity. Um, so Instagram live series, met amazing people, and my focus was really on women in our industry, in the motorsports industry, because more often than not, people would say, "Oh, well, how do guys treat you?" Fortunately, because I was older, people were always very nice to me. Plus, I'm about 6'2", so so people are like, I think they're more kind of like, "How does she get into that little car?" So it's always there's that coffee table book that starts the conversation. I am the equivalent to that coffee table book that starts the conversation, right? But, back to I've always pressed. I want to see how far I can go, and it's hard. There in the last couple weeks, I've probably cried a few times because it's hard to it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of no. But if you stay the course, it might just be a no for now, and the yes is down the road, and the only person who doesn't win is the person who quits. And I guess I've
Right.
read that enough that I understand I can't quit. I have to finish something. I'm great at ideas. Hey, how about you fulfill the idea? So I have a couple of things that I'm working on, my coaching program that kind of dives into deeply how to keep going and what are the tricks that I've learned and how do we set ourselves up for success? I'm not a flash in the pan. I this is I've wrestled my way through and I keep going and I guess I'll just keep doing it to the last breath, right?
Right, right. So tell us a bit more about the high octane hustle, so that people can understand. Whoever is listening can understand in any part of the world what this podcast is all about. What do you do there? Is it? I can. So I saw a couple of this episode. It's a lot of hard work, miss, talking to people and not bringing them to the focus of everything that you are doing. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, as you've probably discovered, Ajay, I love to talk to people. I mean, if the roles were reversed, I think I would love interviewing you because of the fact that I want to know, first of all, I probably will never live in India. Um, I'll be lucky to visit. I would love to be able to do that. But meeting somebody who does something different than I do has always been a fascination to me. Hearing about um, their exploits, right? Hearing about their experiences and kind of really opening up the idea of their experience, what they've lived, right? I love that. That started with my Instagram live series. And then I did a Zoom podcast with a friend of mine who ultimately became my podcast co host. And that was
Right.
called Riding Shotgun TV. We had to change that because, well, you know what? On YouTube, anything that says shotgun in it, we're having a good time here. Riding shotgun means we're sitting in passenger seat,
Right.
in our world. And but YouTube flags that. So we had to come up with a different name. And it was really about, we're two people with very high octane energy. Our whole team, our podcast team is very high energy. And I feel so, so grateful to have the producers that I have. Um, they're not only insanely knowledgeable about motorsports and automotive, but they've been collectively producing motorsports media for about 30, 35 years. And to have professionals that understand what to look for and coach you in the right direction, I think is just, to me, is such a gift. But moreover, during the last 10, 12 years that I've been in motorsports, I've met some amazing people. I mean, like crazy people that I never thought I would meet. And for instance, Al Unser Jr. and BJ Baldwin and Tanner Faust, so many different incredible racers from rally racers. Tanner is a rally racer and he's been doing this for 30 years. BJ Baldwin, since he was 17, another 30 years, trophy truck driver, and Al Unser Jr. from the Unser legacy, an IndyCar driver. So to be able to sit and have conversations with these gentlemen, and then women on top of that, racers like Krista Baldwin. She is what we call a legacy baby. She is third generation NHR dragster racer, top fuel drag racer. So it's talk about high octane. You've got to really bring the
Right.
energy when you've got something like that. But I think that to your point, it's it was an evolution more than anything, because I'm also interested in interviewing a friend, Graham Swarsa, who's a documentarian, and he actually filmed the life of a friend of ours and was there the day she passed, getting achieving a world record. Nobody wanted that for sure, least of all Jesse, but um, she is a land speed record holder. And, it's to have those people share their stories, it really touches you in a way. Me personally, I had hoped, but I didn't certainly expect, and it's touched me beyond that. And I think for me, having the podcast, it's it 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 brings it even to a deeper place, because it's not just a conversation between some friends. We want it to feel like a conversation with our audience. We want them to feel like they're there in that moment, because I don't look at my life like I deserve this. I look at it as a life that says, holy cow, there's so much goodness and I've had so many incredible experiences. How can I share all of that magic that I've been touched with other people, so they get a moment, or multiple moments, especially through the podcast, to be a part of, to feel a part of, to engage in something and learn something about somebody they didn't know. Because at the baser level, we all got up one day and said, well, I want to do something different. And for some of them, it's mind blowing what they do. So I hope that answered your question. I
Yes,
was
yes.
long-winded.
No, no, no. Wonderful. There's a lot of insight into what you are speaking, and you see that is why I like listen. I like to listen to your story. And normally, uh, I don't get so much of insights into, or that would add value. But here there is still so much to understand. I know it can't go on forever, but I would
Right.
like to extract as much as possible for the audience within the limited time that we have. One more thing I want to understand then, uh, Jane, is about that when you are into racing, you have got this whole team around you with everyone as backup and something, everything else in place. What about reinventing your life at 50 or around? What are the tools that you would keep? in terms of people, in terms of skills, reskilling, refueling, everything else? How should one gather those things at that point in time?
For me, I was blessed. I worked with a woman who is a business coach, and I've all along I've always believed in um, finding people who had more education than I did, whether it's a friend, a mentor, like physically within your workspace or online education, somebody who knew more than me. Super, super important to always surround yourself with people who you think are smarter than you, who are uh, surround yourself with people that they exist in a space that you want to be. Then
Right.
learn from them. Do whatever you can and then pay it back to whomever wants to know. That I think is first and foremost to me my most important thing. But I've done it all. I've had private life coach, I've had business coaches. I've an easy thing to do is joining. I have one coach that I met through fitness, and oddly enough, she said, "I want to do a podcast." This is a crazy, crazy story, but I'll tell it on her
Right.
podcast. You don't have time for that, but listening to those people, working with those people, and staying connected in community, I think is critical. I can't do any of this. None of what I've done was by myself, is what I'm here to tell you guys. It's super, super important. You have to have a great support system, and if you don't have one in place, go create one. That is the most important thing I can tell you is create your space to grow and flourish. Now, it's something that you have to want. It's not something that, oh, it's just going to happen, because you're going to have to be consistent. You're going to have to read. You're going to have to um, tap into language that you may or may not be familiar with, and you're going to have to do a lot of self-study, and that just kind of will open up your life in ways that you may or may not have thought was ever possible. Education is paramount. It can be on the computer, it can be in a workshop, it can be here in a master class, it can be at in a college or a vocational school, all of those things. In fact, currently, I'm doing a little education because my producer said to me, "Do you know how to weld?" And I said, "No, I don't." He said, "You should learn to weld." So I'm at our shop, at our business, and just so y'all know, we own an automotive business. And yes, I can
Right.
do things with cars that most people don't do. But I'm learning to weld. I'm 60 years old and I'm learning a new skilled trade. So if you want something, go after it and find the place, whether it's, again, going back to a vocational skill, you go to the school, a tech school, uh, educate yourself. That's what I suggest.
Absolutely, educate yourself, and there is so much to learn and understand from you, Jane. I'm sure a lot of people would want to uh, know more from you, know more about you, about your podcast, about what the things you have done. So what is the best way for them to connect with you?
Well, there's a couple ways you can connect with me, guys. You can log on to www.highoctanehustle.com, to our website. So you can follow along with the podcast. You can catch up with me there, drop me an email through the website. If you want, you can follow me on Instagram at FastlaneJane underscore. You can see the cute little race car and little tidbits of my personal life. And also on Instagram, High Octane Hustle Official. You can follow along with the podcast there. I would love it if you would. Please, if you've seen me here on this podcast, make a special note because I would love to know who is in India following along with this, or from what part of the country you're in, or what part of the world you're in. I would love to hear that and have some dialogue. I don't do I have TikTok, but I'm not really good at TikTok. So you can reach me in those locations.
Wonderful. One last question for you,
Yes.
Jane, is that you reinvent yourself at 50. What about the end part? How do you get off the fast lane? How do you decide about the end? Should it be about, blaze of glory or trail of glory? Going down in a blaze of glory, how should that be? Or it should be gently into the night? How do you look at life at that point in time?
How about this? I remember seeing this and it said, I want to slide sideways into my grave, right? If you will. But I
Correct.
think that we've seen so many things. Brave women rarely make history, right? Um, I I would like to pass away in my sleep if anybody if the Lord is listening. But no, I think that I'm gonna I'm gonna ride this till the wheels fall off. That's really how I want to go through the rest of my life, until I can no longer do um, what I'm doing, until they kick me out. Ajay, I mean, I'm staying. Lights out. Last call. I'm staying.
You are staying and you will continue to stay for a very, very long time. You are doing a
Thank
lot of
you.
things for the world. You are teaching the young generation, and they will continue to tell your story. They will continue to drive safely and tell your
Yes.
story when they continue to do so.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's been absolute joy for me. Thank you.
Same here, same here. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.